I wanted to talk today about my book, Initiation of the Soul, Myth and Fairy Tales as a Path of Awakening to Freedom and Wholeness. The idea for this book came when I was in graduate school at Pacifica Graduate Institute in California. I had a myth class, and in that class, we'd studied a few different stories. And one of the things that I noticed was this pattern of the father sacrificing the daughter. I pick up on patterns because I've been working with dreams for years, and that's something that I often can see and notice. And so I was curious about this. I knew instantly what it meant on one level, and that is that in the West, we're in a patriarchal society, and the feminine has been sacrificed, which means just basically things we associate with the feminine have gone into the unconscious. So I knew that that was like right off the bat. I knew that was one of the things that it was saying. But I thought, well, is there something else that's happening at a deeper level? One day, as we were all coming back from a break in class, I was walking across the floor going back to my seat. And where else would I be walking? On the floor. and and I got this message. And the message was that it wasn't a sacrifice by the father, it was an initiation by the mother. And I was like, what? That's crazy because that means that I was looking at it as a sacrifice by the father, which makes her a victim, right? And instead, what the message was that it was an initiation by the feminine. And so when I shifted my perspective on the stories, I was like, oh, okay, well, that really makes sense. So as I was writing the paper, I was working with one story, which is of Psyche and Eros. And Psyche is the Greek word for soul. Eros is the god of love. And there was a chapter in a larger work by Apuleius. And in that story, um, she's sacrificed by the father, but the divine feminine, which is Venus, does come into the story and she does test her over Psyche over and over again. And when I looked at that story and then looked at Beauty and the Beast, I realized this is the same story. The difference in the version of Beauty and the Beast that I was reading and in the Psyche and Eros story was that the divine feminine had disappeared from the story. So when you take the more modern fairy tales, we no longer have evidence of Venus. So what else is interesting about this story was like when Venus was upset, she went into the ocean, which is a symbol of the unconscious. And so essentially it was like depicting this moment in history when we were shifting and the feminine was going into the unconscious. She didn't stay there, but like I thought that was interesting in terms of her going in, she comes out, but also what happens with Psyche is Psyche goes from seeing herself as a victim. And what happens is through this initiatory process, she becomes aware of her true nature and the divinity, the divine, her divine true nature. And so the story really kind of shows the arc of the transformation of, like I said, Psyche is soul. So the soul's transformative journey from identification with the ego, which is the story, to identification with the truth of who she is, which is the divinity. Now, what I did then was I started with that story of Psyche and Eros, and then I went to Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella and other stories. And what I believe is that these stories, that when we incarnate, we choose stories to incarnate into. And because stories that stay active in our culture for a long period of time, they stay active because they resonate at the level of the collective unconscious. And so they resonate for as long as we're transforming the pattern in the story. This is what I believe. They stay active. The stories like The Wizard of Oz, which was published in 1900 and is still active in our culture today. Stories of King Arthur, same thing, very old, but still active hundreds of years later. And so we take the story of Psyche and Amor or Eros, and that story is believed to be thousands of years old. So it's really interesting that that is something that's that active, still active in our culture and still active because the story transformed into like Beauty and the Beast. And you can see remnants of it in some of the other fairy tales that I looked at, like Cinderella and Rapunzel and things like that. So these stories, I believe we incarnated to transform this story in our own lives. So let's say you might resonate more with Cinderella, you might resonate more with Hansel and Gretel, you might resonate more with Sleeping Beauty. And so I believe that we resonate with these stories because on an unconscious level, we don't necessarily realize, but oftentimes they mirror our own lives or challenges we have in our lives. And another really interesting thing about stories is that we don't even need to understand the symbolism of them, but they go into the unconscious and the soul, which is symbolic. So dreams, like dreams are symbolic because they're speaking to the soul, kind of knocking on the door and saying, wake up to who you are. And they're guiding us and telling us like the truth. They're trying to get us to see and transform the ways that we might have fallen to victim consciousness, ways we might be identified with things that limit us. And they're trying to expand our sense of self so that we can see the truth of who we are. So these stories have these patterns that we live in our lives. And as we transform these stories in ourselves, we're also transforming the collective. So the book is me going through the fairy tales, um, a bunch of them, and talking about the popular ones, like I said, like Cinderella, Rapunzel, Sleeping Beauty, and talking about how they are what they're saying to us symbolically in order to help us transform our consciousness. All of them are resolved at the end of the story. So I didn't pick stories that might leave you hanging and might leave you in a place that's like of failure, essentially. But what we're doing, all these stories are about successfully transforming our consciousness and getting into a place of a resolution. Now, a lot of people think that these fairy tales show girls as victims. But when you look at them symbolically and when you really look at the stories, and I tried to get like the Grimm's unabridged version as clean as I could. And when I looked at them, I was like, I couldn't believe how you could think they were victims. You just, they're doing crazy things. They're like Beauty and the Beast willingly offers to take her father's place and sacrifice herself, essentially, to the beast. And so, from a literal standpoint, again, that doesn't look great, but from a symbolic standpoint, and she's sacrificing her identity, her life, the way that she's always known it. Like the things that these young women do, these heroines in these stories, it's not for the faint of heart. The handless maiden, her father cuts off her hands. That's, there's other things that happen before that. And she says, tie my hands behind my back. I'm leaving home and I'm going to sacrifice. I'm not going to sacrifice. I'm going to surrender to Providence. So she's walking away from all the security and safety that she's ever known and saying, I'm going to like just surrender to something greater than myself. And in essence, she is taken care of. In things work out for her. So they're not victims, and they're not just hanging out waiting. Pardon me, waiting for someone to come and save them, the prince to come in on the horse. you see over and over again that that's not it. And in a story like Rapunzel, the prince is lost without her. He's absolutely lost. He wanders around blind and lonely and in despair. And in The Handless Maiden, her husband, when she goes into the unconscious for the second time, then he's lost and he wanders for 7 years looking for her, right? So in these stories, it's often that the masculine realizes the value of the feminine. He realizes the value of the feminine. And what that means is in our own psyche, this is not about being rescued by the masculine because we can see from our culture that hasn't worked. What we need is balance. And we need to learn how to value both aspects of ourselves. And we all have both of these things within ourselves. They're essentially energy. So, how do we balance the masculine and the feminine energy in ourselves? And that is just that the feminine is like receptivity and the masculine is like action oriented. It's going out. So it's taking these two things and learning how to get them to dance, like to dance and create effectively. We are moving into a time where we are coming out of survival and out of the old consciousness into a place of thriving and being creators of our lives. And that requires both because the mind, which we've been taught and conditioned, most of us, to rely on the mind for ways to navigate through life. But the mind is based on the past. And the mind can only look at what has happened before in order to decide how do I go forward. And where we are now in terms of the consciousness of humanity evolving is from a place where we have to understand that we can't create something new from our experience of the old. But the way that we create something new is to receive information that's new, that comes from the intuition, comes from the heart, comes from the body, comes from other ways of receiving, comes from dreams. We receive information that way that is not about the past and is not about limitations that we've been conditioned to believe in and is not about our conditioned mind. But it opens up a vista that we may not have seen before, that we may not have believed was possible for us or for the culture. And so it's about bringing these energies together and learning how they work together. So the mind, which represents the masculine, isn't about like the mind is figuring out. Oftentimes, when we go into the mind, we get stuck because we can get over analytical. But when we have clarity from another way of knowing, a gut knowing, a heart knowing, an intuitive knowing, when we get that kind of clarity, that's when the masculine comes in and says, these are the steps we need to take in order to make this happen. So we're shifting into this new consciousness where we're being guided by spirit, guided by your higher self, however you want to look at it, in order to create a new world and to create a new way of being that has all of us as equal. And when we understand that we are all in oneness, we are all, even physics says that energetically, that we're all connected. When we understand that, we understand there is no enemy here. When you look at it that way and you open up to the possibility that that's what's really happening here, who's the enemy? Who's on the other side? There is no enemy. And so we begin to shift how we see and how we navigate in life and change how we relate to each other and what we believe is possible for us. So the book is available anywhere you get your books. Probably not going to walk into Barnes and Noble and they have it on the shelf. Not that available anywhere, but you could order it from Barnes and Noble. You can get it at the Amazon. You should be able to get it anywhere, like in an independent bookstore. They should be able to order it for you, I should say. So maybe someday it will be that widely available. not yet. So I hope you give it a look. If you have something like Kindle, you can download the sample so you can see if it resonates with you. The first chapter is a little bit more can be a little bit more academic, where it's kind of justifying what follows. But if you don't like that, just skip to the next chapter, and that's where the stories start coming in. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.